So again, for Chapter 1, we're assigning programs 7 through 9. For Chapter 2, programs 5 through 8, 10, and 13. We did basically 8 and 9 as a class, and now we're going to do 5 and 6, and we're going to do 10 as a class. So number 5 is inches to centimeters. All right? Okay, so the first thing they tell us that we're supposed to do here, I'm just going to bop back and forth between here and the book. I don't know if it'll let me copy this or not. Copy. Let's see. If it does, I'm just going to throw it in there as a comment. That's fine. All right. You don't have to do this. I just find that sometimes putting comments in like this, if I have it right in front of me, it's much easier. Okay, so first thing it says, we should have a name constant that holds the numbers of centimeters in an inch, and it should be set to 2.54. Hopefully you remember that when we create a constant, we start it with const. This will be a double because it will have a decimal place in it. All right, and call it what it is, centimeters in an inch. And I'm going to set that equal to 2.54. One of the things it's my responsibility to try to show you in here are the standards or the way that people typically do things. All right? You don't have to look up here, but please listen to this, okay? And one of those standards is, if you have at the top of your program like this, if you have constants, you typically put your constants in before your variables. All right? They're constant, and that goes at the top. That's just kind of an unwritten law that people do. If you don't like the name and you think that's too big, I wouldn't call it like CIAI for centimeters in an inch. But if you want to call it cent, in inch, or that's fine. It should at least be descriptive enough that you can figure out what it is. All right? All right. So if I wanted to, again, you don't have to do this, but I can come in here and say declare and initialize program constants. All right. Oops. Then I'm going to declare and initialize my program variables. Now, this program is going to take a little longer to write, and there is a reason for that. Not this one so much, but the next one. I want to show you two ways of doing the same thing. And, because, you say, well, why? Because to me, there's no difference between using them. You might find one easier to use than the other. So then you can make your own determination as far as which one you should use. All right? So my two variables will be a double, and I will centimeters, and I'm just going to initialize that to 0. In fact, I could make this program really, really short. I can put in here double inches, and I'll set that equal to 3. All right. Then I can put in double centimeters, and I can set that equal to inches times centimeters in an inch. Now, all I need to do is put in my right line statements. Before I do my right line statements, stop typing and look on the screen, please. Before I do my right lines, just get used to, for now, getting rid of these and just put in your using static system.console statement. All right? So we've got these. So now it becomes just 3 right lines. In fact, 1 right line will work. Right line what is it? It's inches. I'm going to put this on 2 lines. You don't have to, but I'm putting it on 2 lines so you can read it. All right, let me run it and make sure it works. 3 inches is 7.62 centimeters, exactly what they showed in the book. Okay, again, if I want to do that, I can put in here some new lines. All right. And I could tab it if I wanted to also. All right, I'm not even going to worry about that, but I'm just going to leave it like that, run it, let you all see it in all of its glory. 3 inches is 7.62 centimeters. So what have we done here? At the top, we put in our using static system.console. I put in here, and this is normally referred to as a program prologue. All right, I just put what was in the book. And you don't have to do that. And then in main, I mean, again, this is the entire program right there. It's not interactive. Every time we run this program, we're going to get the same output. Does that make sense to everybody? We hard-coded a value in for inches. We hard-coded that in. Since we hard-coded that in, all right, it'll always be the same value. We're not soliciting any input from the user. We're literally printing a statement, for lack of better words. All right. Are there any questions on any of the code that's in here? You might look at that and go, you know, I get it, but this was kind of stupid. You're only using it once. Couldn't you have just said 2.54 there? Yes. Program would have worked just fine. Again, you use constants for your edification and anybody who might read your program. All right. I've written programs already where I use so many constants that I can, for example, give it to my wife who knows nothing about computer programming. And she can read it and figure out what's happening. All right, just by the fact that there's so many constants and the use of good variable names. All right. Now, there's a couple things I want to mention in here, just so you know this. All right, we don't have to do this. This, in some ways, this is a very forgiving language. What do I mean by that? This whole thing right here says, what I want to print out is a string with 3 blank lines, a double variable, a string, a double variable, and a string. Does that make sense to everybody? That's what we're telling it to do. All right? But if we wanted to be really picky about this, what we really should be putting in a right line are all strings. So we could do this. We could take inches and say dot to string. And that just takes it and it makes it a string. It doesn't change its actual value. It changes the value that's printed. So I could do the same thing here. You don't have to do that in this language, but you can. All right. What if I wanted to make sure always, always, always that this centimeters thing printed out with 2 decimal places? Are you with me? I always wanted it so it was only 2 decimal places. Then I could come in here and say this. I could say F2. which would mean always put it floating point 2 decimal places. I'm just telling you stuff that you can add, not stuff that you have to add. All right? Is there anything in that program that doesn't make sense to people? I'll leave it up there for a minute, but that's my question. Anything that you need clarity on or anything else? Yes. It says what I'm printing out is a string, but handle it as though it's a floating point with 2 decimal places in it. I'm not doing this, but if I made that a C, it would change that to $. Instead of 7.62, it would be $7.62. There's different types of formatting that you can do. But you'll notice that even after making those changes and saving it and running it, I still get the same output. All right? And again, if it's hard for you to read, I could always go back here, and after those N, I could add myself a couple of tabs. You don't have to do that. If it makes it easier for you to read, then do it. So, well, what about you? I'll adapt. I'm not that concerned with it. All right? Now, there's probably very little from this program that I'm going to be able to use in the next one, the interactive one. Probably very little, but that said, just in case, I'm going to click my double disk icon, and I'm just going to grab everything that's inside of main, and I'm just going to copy it to the clipboard. That's all. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to. All right? In fact, I'm going to go a little further, and I'm going to grab because I made my comment in here. So I'm going to put basically everything I'm going to copy. You don't have to do that. But now I can do, does everybody have the program? Anybody still typing? Anybody who's still typing and wants to admit that they're still typing? All right. So I'm going to come in here, I click my double disk icon, and I'm going to do a file, close solution, and I'm going to start another project. So I'm going to do another file, new, project, and this one will be inches to centimeters interactive. That's what we were told to call it. Inches to centimeters interactive. It will again be a console app. All right. So I've got that. Now I'm going to go back over here, and where I copied that stuff, I'm going to just throw it in the clipboard. All right, I'm going to put my comment back in here. Let's see, and I'm going to change this to write and interactive. All right, named inches, centimeters, interactive. I still need that. Okay, this time I'm going to change this to read in a variable to represent a measurement in inches and assign it a value. All right, display the measurement in both inches and centimeters. Okay, pretty much what we had before. All right, so I've got my stuff from before. Again, you may have it, you may not. It's no big thing one way or the other, but I'm just going to grab all of it for now and paste it in. So right now, I'm not running this, okay, and I've got to add my using line. But right now, I've got basically the same program I had before. All right, so let's go back up here, and I'm going to remove all those except the using system and putting in my using static system.console. All right, which fixed all those errors. All right, I still want this. I still want this, but now I'm going to do this calculation later. I want to set inches right now to 0.0. All right, and I'm going to set centimeters right now to 0.0. One thing about this, they have some kind of a weird formatting that Microsoft uses. Did you ever notice this? If you look right here, that if I go in here, I hit tab a couple times to line this up, you're like, that worked. But notice what happens if I come in here and I say double, don't do this. But if I say X and I say tab, 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 so it equals 23. And I hit that, see how it moves it over? All right, Microsoft's got its own built-in thing for its editor, which I hate. And there might be a way to turn it off. I've just never looked for it. All right, so here's my inches and here's my centimeters. All right, so what I want to do now is read in a value for inches. All right, now what I'd like you to do, if you don't mind, is not type for a minute, because I want to show you this in two ways. And you figure out which way is better for you. All right? So the first way is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, I'm going to put in a write line that says, enter a number representing inches. All right? In fact, I'm going to use a write and not a write line. You'll see why in a minute. Okay? Now, what I want to do is I want to say this. I'd like to be able to say inches equal read line. This isn't going to work. Somebody tell me. We went over this yesterday. Why isn't that working? We did this yesterday. Because read line expects string input. I'm trying right now, instead of string input, I'm trying to give it, instead of string, I'm giving it double input. So what I can do is I can say convert dot to double read line. You see now how all my errors are gone? Everybody see that? All right. That's one way that you can do it. Some programmers like to do it that way. Others, even though it's a little more code, want to put in here something like this. String, inch, str, that just means inches string. You know, that's all. It doesn't really have any other meaning. Equal, double quote, double quote. So I made it the empty string. Again, you've seen this before. Since I made it the empty string, all right, I get the squiggles underneath it. It says, hey, you're not using it yet. So now what I can do is I can come in here and I can say this. I can say, hit enter here, inch str equals read line. And then inches equals convert to double inches str. You see the difference? It's a little more coding. Isn't it like there? Oh, it's inch str, sorry. It's a little more coding, but some people find writing it that way to be easier to understand. I don't care which way you do it. You should do it, and you should be shooting right now for understandability on your part. If you write a few more lines of code, but you understand it, then I win. And so do you. But if you say, yeah, I put all these shortcuts in there, what do? I don't know. But they were in the book and they look cool. So what? All right? So you can do it either way. All right? I'm going to leave it like this just because it's in there and it works right now. Okay? So now I can come back, and I had that statement from the clipboard before that said this. So now I can come in here and say centimeters equal inches times centimeters per inch. Semicolon. Now we brought in the interactivity. All right? And I'll leave it up there, all right, but I'm gonna save it and run it just to show you something. That is, notice if I, like before, so how many, enter a number representing inches, 3. 3 inches, we've got the same thing that we had before. Works good. No, it works just fine. Not a problem. But if I run this right now, and I'm just going to leave it blank. This is called the exception assistant that you see up on your screen right now. And what that means is something is wrong. You try doing something the compiler doesn't understand. And this is the compiler telling you it doesn't understand. So if you look over here, it's showing you, well, what did we have here? Input string was not in the correct format. You can see what was set. Inches was set to 0. Well, that's a problem already. All right? But it is 0 because we didn't enter anything there. Centimeters is 0, and that's their values they had when we initialized them at the top of the program. And our constant was set. This is called a locals window right here. And it'll show you all the variables you're currently working with. All right? And it's especially important when you're debugging a program like this. So you say, that's fine. Well, how do you fix that? You use what's called a try parse, which we don't get into until chapter 4 or 5. So you'll see it, but for right now, the program's going to break when you do certain things. That's okay. But my question is there anyone in here that has any questions on anything that's in here? Yes.
Can you do the first way again?
Yes. All right. Question was, can I do the first way again? The easiest way to show you that is I'm going to take what's in here, and I'm going to comment this out, and I'm going to comment this out, and I'm going to comment that out. Okay? And then I'm just going to come in here, and I'm going to type in inches equals convert dot to double read line. So now they're both in there. Again, you don't get any extra credit or anything better for doing it one way as opposed to the other. Sometimes people are, well, which one do you like, Jeff? I come back and I give that classic answer. It's like saying, which of your kids do you like most? All right? And it's funny, you may or may not laugh over this, but I find this hilarious, that at Christmas time, my 3 daughters are at my house. They're 28, 27, and 22. They're arguing over which one mom loves the most. And they almost come to blows. I always love that because boys are so much more physical than girls. Not from what I've seen. So you've got both ways in here. The first way we did it is now commented out. Any questions on this? I think that's what you wanted, right? So, okay. If you were asked to do something similar to this, would you be able to do it for a hands-on test? Remember, for hands-on tests, you can use notes. You can have multiple sessions of Visual Studio running at once. So you could bring up, oh, that's pretty close to that program like this we did in class. Then bring that program up. All right? All right, so that's number 5. And number 6. Okay? So again, in the first program that we did, it was non-interactive. Does everybody understand what I mean by that? You hard-coded in the value, so every time you run it, it has the same result. Yes?
Did we ever get into how to fix that error?
How to fix what error? The one I showed you? What I said was we're going to have to use what's called a try parse. But that's not explained till like chapter 4 or 5. So yes, we will, but no, we won't now. So for now, it's just going to be an error that we're going to live with. All right? I mean, if you want to go out and look in your book or go out to msdn.microsoft.com, you can do that. Okay? So we just did number 5, the inches to centimeters. We just did number 6, which was the inches to centimeters interactive. All right? So you're going to do 7 and 8. Let's quickly look at these. Write a C program named Project Raises. Name them this, please. All right? That includes a named constant representing next year's anticipated 4% raise for each employee. So when you set that constant up, you will say something like const double. I'm out of room, so you put it all in one line, but I'll just call it projected raise equal 0.04. Does that make sense to everybody? Don't write 4 with a percent sign, and don't make it 4 unless you want to do some extra math. Or if you want, you can make it 0.04, but that is 4%. Also declare variables to represent the current salary for 3 employees. So you'll have something like employee 1 salary, employee 2 salary, employee 3 salary. All right? You know, it's totally fine to give them values that it's easy to figure out. Like one could be 10,000, 20,000, and 30,000. Because it'd be very easy to figure out what 4% on that was. All right? And then explain. So what do you have to do? You have to take each salary and multiply it by that, right? Basically exactly what we just did in the inches to centimeter. Except now you got 3 variables instead of 1. Then go in and convert it and make it interactive. So instead of assigning values to these 3 salaries, accept them from the user as input. When we get into chapter, I think it's 4, let's see, 5. We're going to do looping, which is going to cut down. Right now you're writing more extraneous code that you really don't have to write. All right? And there's nothing wrong with it, but it's just kind of a waste to do that. All right. So I'm going to come down here to number 10. Remember, you have to do 10, you have to do 13. It's pretty much the same algorithm in both. All right? So what we're going to do here is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and it's supposed to be called hours and minutes. So again, I'm going to come back here, click my double disk icon, do a file, and close my solution, and then start up a new project. File, new project. It's called, oops, that's not it, what I want. I think it was hours and minutes. Again, it'll be a console app. All right. And OK. Again, I'm going to come in here, and at the top of my program, I'm going to put in that comment that I just copied. All right. We could take this program fairly easily and expand it. All right. And what do I mean by that? Well, we could figure out, for example, this is just hours and minutes. We could add days. We could figure out how many seconds there are in a day. It wouldn't be hard to figure out. We could make a, if we wanted to, we could make a constant for that, etc. So there'd be a lot of different things that we could do here. Now it says, write a program that declares a minutes variable to represent the minutes you worked on a job and assign a value to it. Then display that value in both hours and minutes. So this is not really very hard. So I'm going to make 2 variables. So I'm going to make here, and they're both going to be integers. Why am I using integers? Yeah, there are whole numbers, but why am I making them whole numbers? Because they're hours, which would be a whole number, and they're minutes, which would be a whole number. All right? If we were using seconds also, I might change that around. All right? But I'm going to come in here, my int hours equals 0, and int minutes equals 0. All right? and I want to come in and I want to read in, and it doesn't matter which one of these you put first. All right. Declare a minutes variable and assign a value to it. Okay. Well, rather than assigning a value to it, let's read a value in. All right, because that's a little nicer to do. So again, we're going to say here minutes equal. Now this will be a convert.toInt32 of readline. All right, I'm getting my error. Why? Because I've got to come back up to the top again. I wish they would just add that using console system.console. You know, they would just put it in there. Or they're using static console system.console. All right. So I probably should have a write in here first that says, please enter number of minutes worked. Again, if you want to do this, I can bring it down a couple lines and tab it over a little bit. That's fine. All right. Then that's going to put that in there. All right. Well, somebody tell me. What comes there? What do I want to do? You're close. And actually, we could do a divide right there. You're right. So we can say here minutes divided by what? That would make sense to me, right? All right. Now, that's fine. All right. But I'm going to do this. I'm going to make another variable here. And I'm going to call this minutes left. Now I'm going to say here minutes left equals minutes modulo 60. So take a look at that and see if that makes sense to you. And if it doesn't, ask. And I'll put a couple of a right line in here. So. First, let's try it, make sure it works. I think what they used in the example was 197, which should be 3 hours and 17 minutes. I don't know if the print statement is correct either, but we'll try it. 197. Oh, I forgot my read line. $197. 3 hours and 17 minutes. I think that's what we were supposed to have for an answer. Yeah. So I'll give you a couple minutes and we'll go over this. We'll take another break and the rest of the period will be lab. But before the lab, I want to show you why we're not going to go over a calculator program right now, because I went too nuts writing 3 of them last night. And I put in a whole bunch of stuff we don't talk about for 2 or 3 more chapters. All right. Again, remember these backslash n's and backslash t's here, you don't need them. All right. As long as I can read your output, as long as it is readable. So we have now gone through, as a class, we did number 8 and number 9 as a class. And so the only one that you're being basically assigned to do yourself is 7. We did number 5 and we did number 6. So again, you're being assigned 7 and 8. We just did 10. So you're being assigned 13. Does that make sense? And again, if you're able to go through and do all these, I can't see where there's anything in there where you're going to have any problem at all with the hands-on test that we take on Friday. There'll probably be 2 problems. I don't know, last semester, if you say, yeah, you know those JavaScript tests last semester, I hated them. Well, that's on me. I wrote all of them. All right, and Evan at St. Louis gave almost all of them to his students as well. He talked about wanting to write the ones this semester. All right, so but I always can look at them, and if I say that test sucks, Evan, then I won't use it. I'll write my own. All right, but I might very well write the test. My afternoon class on Thursday has a lab. I'll probably write the test then. People say, well, what's going to be on the test? I don't know. It's in my head, but I haven't put it on paper. Are there any questions on this problem? And now, Luke, as an example, if you wanted to, you should be able to go back and rewrite that. If you'd want to do that, you'd add a string variable and then add another line or 2 of code. All right. Do you understand the logic? We put in 197. 197 divided by 60, remember, it's integer divided by integer. That's where we get the 3. All right, 197 modulo 60, that's where we get the 17 from. So what you're going to do then on the one that you're assigned is it's very similar. But you're using money. So it's called make change. And you want to, so if for $113, you want it in as many 20s as possible. 5 20s would be $100. Then as many 10s as possible. 110, now you're at $110. No 5s, 3 singles left. You're going to use the same type of algorithm where you'll do a divide and a modulo. A divide and a modulo. A divide, and that'll be it. Does that make sense? All right. Then I will quickly show you, and I'm going to give you, eventually I'll give you the source code for this. I'm just not going to do it right now. But I did go in yesterday. Let's see if I should have it here. did the calculator twice, and you can see how long it got. A lot longer than I planned. It's over 100 lines, and there's not much documentation in here. But you can run it, and it says enter a first number. All right. Oops, don't know what happened there. 34. Enter a second number, 45. Enter a 1 to add, a 2 to, etc., etc. So I can come through there and I can put in, for example, a 3 to multiply. Okay, and it does it. It all works. All right, but I just thought it might have been too much to go over right now. Why? Because I also set it up. I did it first with an if, and then I went back and redid it with a switch. We haven't talked about those for this language yet. Most of you in here have heard those terms because we went over them with JavaScript. All right, and then finally I went back and I rewrote it. You'll probably think the interface is ugly. That's only because it is. But I did it as a GUI. So there it is. So I can come in here and put any kind of number I want, tell it the operation I want it to do, all right, and tell it to calculate. It does it. It clears everything, puts my cursor there. It exits, but it asks you first, do you want to exit? So when we get to that point, this is the one we'll probably end up writing as a class. All right, just to get you into that mind frame or whatever you want to call it. All right, so again, I'm literally in a matter of seconds, I'm going to write you an email that's got that on it, what's on the board, telling you what your assignment is and when it's due. You've got the rest of this period to work on it. All right, and we'll see tomorrow, where we go tomorrow. And if it seems to you like we're going really, really fast right now, I think I said this before, except for the two gentlemen who are here that are newer students, you've all had this before. It may seem a lot for you two. I don't know because I don't know what your experience is. If I'm going too fast, you've got to let me know. But I can tell you for sure when we get to Chapter 6 and we start talking about arrays, we slow it way down. All right, but I'd like to get to that point as soon as we can get to it. All right? Questions on anything? And the rest of the period is yours.